Hi, this is Laura, and we are going to talk about active labor positions. They're called active labor positions because the active part is very important to the positions that we use in labor. We want to be up and moving and active throughout the labor as much as possible. It's okay to rest. We definitely need rest sometimes too, but in between those times of rest, we want to add a lot of active movement into our coping methods for labor. So we've talked about a few of them already in the text of the lesson, but there's a few that I thought would be really helpful to be able to see these positions and see how they work. You are also welcome to pause this and try them out with me as we go along. So if you have a birth ball or a yoga mat or a chair, these things could be really helpful in trying some of these positions. If not, make sure you do try them out and practice them before your labor. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with these positions. Find how to adapt them for your body and the ones that you are most comfortable with. And that may change throughout labor. The ones you love now may not be comfortable in, halfway through active labor, but they might be. So go ahead and test them out. Find a time when you can get with your labor partner and work on some of these together so that you're both equally familiar with how they work and how they work best for you. So here are a few of them. Walking and rocking are the first ones that were on your list, and I thought you probably didn't need a picture of what walking looks like. Hopefully we're all familiar with that, and hopefully you're already doing that. It's a great way to get your exercise in during pregnancy and leading up to your labor, and a great first exercise to start doing postpartum after your doctor or your midwife has cleared you to begin exercising. It's nice and low impact, and in labor it uses a variety of hip movements. You're nice and upright, so you're making the best use of gravity, and as you go through the walking motion, you're using all different types of hip movements, including a bit of a squat motion that will help open your pelvis and open the pelvic outlet area. Rocking is typically referring to a rocking chair, and most hospitals and birth centers have some kind of a rocking chair available for you to sit in. This is great when you need a rest, but you don't necessarily want to lay down and sleep. If you're still feeling like I want to be upright, but my legs are tired, or I want to snooze in between contractions, a rocking chair can be a great alternative. You're still upright, you're still getting some movement in your hips, in your pelvis, but you can rest, and you can give your legs a rest, you can relax, you can even doze in and out a little bit. One thing that I didn't mention in the lesson previously was this position you see here, this sitting backwards on the chair. This is a great position for if you have a chair that is suited for this. Because again, you're sitting, you can rest. Now you don't have the movement here with a rocking chair, but in order to get your legs around the back of the chair, your pelvis is nice and wide and open, and you can lean forward onto the chair instead of leaning backward. And this fits into the optimal fetal positioning that we talked about earlier. So this is a great position. It also leaves your back nice and open for massage, for hot and cold, for counter pressure, for double hip squeezes, for all of those comfort measures that we've talked about. Any position you can get in that leaves your back wide open for someone to do some of those pain relief techniques and comfort measures, you're going to get double benefit out of that. The next one is swaying, and I really wanted to show you this position, and this is me, so sorry, I'm not pregnant, don't have the pregnant belly to show you, but I promise you, I've done this position many times myself pregnant, and pretty much every one of my doula clients ends up in this position at some point during active labor. It's a very comfortable position. Believe it or not, it's a very relaxed position. It doesn't take a lot of energy or effort, and you can do a lot of things here. So first, if you look at the height, it's about mid-abdomen level height that you're looking for. A little higher would be better too. At home, this could be the back of your couch. It could be a countertop. It could be the back of a chair. If you are at the hospital beds raise and lower, so you can raise the bed all the way up, and that's usually about, for the average person, that's a good height for you to lean over onto. You could stack a couple pillows if you're extra tall and need some extra height and for comfort. This is a great position to let the bed or the the couch or the counter bear most of your weight, and then you can totally relax from about the rib cage down, which is what we're looking for. That's the part that needs to be most relaxed. You really lean your weight into the object you're leaning on, and then you can let go of the rest of your body. Now you'll notice that my feet are pretty far apart, and that is key for keeping the pelvic outlet open. So you want to always have your feet spread apart in your positioning for active labor. And then you can see I've also got my knees bent. When the contraction comes on, you want to sink down into it. And that's not our natural instinct when we're in pain. Our natural instinct to pain is to tighten up and to climb up out of it. And here in labor, we're saying do the exact opposite. We want you to relax and sink down in. And this is a great position for facilitating that. So you've got a little bend in the knees, you're sinking down in, and then what you can't see here is the actual sway. So in this, a nice sway side to side with your hips is so easy. Your hips are totally free and able to move. And this is going to keep you from clenching up and tightening during a contraction. If I see a laboring mom in the middle of a contraction and she's not moving, I know she has tension. So if you can sway your hips side to side in this position, you're going to automatically release some of that tension in your hips, your pelvis, your pelvic floor muscles. And this is where we need to let go of that tension so the baby can move down and so that changes can happen. If the labor partner is also watching this video, this is a place where you can help. So if you see her not moving, she's in this position, but she's holding really still, you can come up behind her, ask her if you can help touch her hips and help move side to side and help her with that movement and facilitating that movement. This is my favorite position for active labor. So go ahead and pause this video and see if you can find something around your house that would be the right height for you to really lean into, be able to sink down a little bit into your contractions and practice that sway. The next one on our list is hanging, and I know this sounds a little bit strange if you're new to this whole childbirth thing, but I wanted to include it because it is very common in birth centers and in more natural birth type settings. And so I wanted you to be familiar with this concept. And it is an instinct that a lot of women have to grab onto something and to hang. If you look at pictures of hospitals and birth centers in Europe, you may see a picture of some fabric hanging from the ceiling, one loop or two loops. And this is the same concept. You can hook that loop of fabric under your arms and be able to kind of hang or dangle from it. And just like with the position I showed you before, you're resting your upper body weight on this so that from the rib cage down you can relax. So with a ladder like this is actually the ladder from a birth center that's right down the street from where I live. You can see a lot of the comfort measure tools in this. They have a nice stool. That's not their birthing stool. They have a much lower birthing stool. You can see their birth ball. You can see the edge of the tub. So these are some things that a lot of birth centers will have, and some hospitals will have. This ladder you won't see very often. It's actually called Swedish rungs. And birth centers are probably the only place in the United States that you're going to see these unless you have a really up-to-date, innovative hospital near you. These can be used to grab on with your hands and lower yourself into a squat so that your legs aren't bearing all of the weight. You can also loop a piece of fabric like a rebozo or a sheet or a towel around it, around one of the rungs, and hold on to that towel. You can tie a knot in it for a better grip. And you can lower yourself down that way into a squat, or you can tie it up high and try and get sort of a hanging action from there. So just wanted to show you what that looks like in case you encounter that. Most people, when they see that for the first time, are like, am I going to climb a ladder in labor? No, that's not the point. So that's hanging. Supported squat. Definitely wanted to show you a picture of this. It's really hard to describe with just words. And I love these little pictures. Aren't they cute? So you can see this one involves a partner. And this can be your husband or your mom or your doula or whoever is with you. And There are two ways to do this, the standing and the sitting. So the standing is really good. You get the most out of gravity, but you can only sustain it for so long unless your partner is a bodybuilder and has unlimited bicep strength. You can only do this for a short time before he or she is going to start to wear out. So you can see how it works though. Even in this drawing, the hands are underneath the mom's armpits. And so in between contractions, you can stand together, you can sway together. Your partner can be giving you some encouraging words. You can be talking about how you felt during that last contraction. And then as your contraction comes on, you take a nice deep breath and you can sink down into the contraction, and he can help support your weight so your legs aren't being overtaxed. And then at the end of the contraction, another deep breath, and he can help you stand back up. If this is too tiring, you can try the seated squat. It's the same basic concept. So you can see in the diagram, he's got his hands, his forearms underneath her armpits and is holding her there. If your partner is someone that you're very comfortable with and you can sit in his lap in between contractions and he can hold you and encourage you that way, you've got the added benefit of an increase in the oxytocin hormone, the love hormone, as you're feeling close to him, being encouraged and feeling the touch. This is going to help your contractions be more effective. So you have a win-win going on here. And then in between the contractions, you can sink down in between his legs and he can hold you up and support you there. If this becomes too tiring, or if you just want some added support there, you can put a very low birthing stool on the ground underneath you. Those are kind of hard to come by, at least on the hospitals around here. So we often use a peanut ball, which a doula would carry. Some hospitals carry them. More and more hospitals are starting to have at least one or two on the labor and delivery floor that you can use. And we'll show a picture of the peanut ball in just a minute, but it has a dip in the middle. It's shaped just like a peanut. So it has a smaller part in the middle of it, and that's a great place to sit where you have a nice deep squat, but you're still on something that's supporting you. And then your partner can just help keep you stable on that ball. The tub or the pool is a great place to labor. A lot of women really like laboring in the pool. It just kind of takes the edge off the contraction. So you still feel the contraction for sure, but it just kind of takes that peak off of the contraction of the pain that you feel. There are a lot of different positions that you can do in the water. Now, both of these tubs that you see here are quite large. This is the kind of thing that you would find at a home birth or at a birth center. Some hospitals will allow you to bring your own, and you can ask about that. But in most hospital settings, you're going to have just a bathtub. But you can see how these positions are adaptable for whatever size tub you have. So on the top left, she's sitting there kind of in a hands, knees position, but with her chest resting on the side of the tub. And she looks very relaxed and very comfortable there. That picture doesn't appear to have much water in it. For some reason, it would be a lot fuller than that. But this is a great position that is very comfortable for a lot of people. If the edge of your tub is not that soft on the top right, you can see how she's using a towel to make it more comfortable. She's full on in a hands and knees position. She may even be squatting a little bit with her legs back there. But she could be resting her chest on that towel on the edge as well. Whatever is comfortable for you. There's freedom to move throughout the labor in the tub. And then the classic position is just like you would lay in a bathtub, reclined on your back, and you can find a good place there too. You also could slightly turn. It looks like she may be turned up on one hip a little bit more. That gives a little more usable space in your pelvis for the baby. Just be sure that you're changing positions every 30 to 60 minutes. The birth ball is everyone's favorite tool for labor because it is so versatile. One of the keys to why the birth ball is so effective is just the soft surface. We are able to relax our pelvic floor muscles more easily when we're sitting on a soft surface. So even if you do nothing on the ball, it is going to be more effective than sitting in a hard chair. It also keeps you leaning forward a little bit more or straight up instead of reclining back, and that goes back to our optimal fetal positioning that we talked about. You can see in this picture here, I'm leaning all the way forward, and this is a great position for labor. You're helping the baby be in a good position. You're opening that pelvic space. Again, look how far apart my feet and my knees are. That gives a lot of space at the pelvic outlet, the pelvic opening, and gives plenty of room for the baby to move. From this position, you can sway side to side. You can go forward and backward with your hips, almost like a pelvic tilt, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute, but you can almost do a pelvic tilt sitting on the ball. You can make figure eights, you can get as fancy as you want, you can write your name. We talked about doing that when you're just getting comfortable with the birth ball, but it can also be an effective tool during labor because you will begin to time that with the length of your contraction, like a focal point. So if you're slowly writing your name with your hips on the ball, and you realize that by the time you get to the end of your name, or if you have a short name, you may have to do it 2 or 3 times, or do your last name, you realize that by the time you get to the end of that word, your contraction's coming to an end. Then the next contraction, you can focus on that. Now you've got all the hip movements going on in your hips with your pelvis, and that's all being beneficial physically for the baby and for your progression in labor. But now you also have the mental focus of walking yourself through that contraction and realizing, okay, I only have 2 letters to go in my name. That means I'm almost there. And that's going to help you mentally cope with the contraction as well. You can, in the same position, lean a little bit further forward. You may have to move your knees a little bit further apart to make room for your belly. And you may need to stack up a few pillows there to get the right height for you. You can raise the hospital bed if you're at the hospital, or lean on your bed or your couch if you're at home. But once you find the right height for you, this is a great position to still have movement in your hips if you need it, but also to totally rest the weight of your upper body onto the pillow or the chair or the couch. So you get the benefits of both the ball and the leaning. Hands and knees is a lot of people's favorite position with the birth ball. Hands and knees without the ball is a great position, but it puts a lot of pressure on your wrists. So if you're going to be there for a long time, or if you have problems with your hands and your wrists, you may not be able to stay there for very long. So you can go up on your fists in hands and knees, or you can lean your chest on the ball. And this is really nice, relaxing position. You can stay here for a long time and be very comfortable. And as you can see, it's similar to the leaning position where the ball is taking most of the weight of my upper body. My knees are also spread quite far apart to keep my pelvis open. And you can still have some movement in this. You can rock back and forth on the ball. You can sway your hips side to side. And you also have access to the back, which again is a great way to get the massage, to get the comfort measures, to get the hot and cold compresses, counter pressure, whatever it is that you're needing in addition to the positioning, you can get from this position as well. One more way to use the ball. This isn't the most common way, but it really works for a lot of women, so I wanted to be sure to mention it, is to put the ball in between yourself and the wall and lean back against it. It puts your body in a nice upright position, but you can lean your weight into the ball and relax a little bit, and it's a nice soft surface. You also then have the freedom to move back and forth. In that picture on the left, my knees are slightly bent, and I can move to the left and to the right and bend my right knee a little bit, bend my left knee a little bit, move back and forth and get a sway in there. And then on the picture on the right, you can see how you can also squat down from this position as deep as you're comfortable. So you can just do a tiny squat. If you've been practicing your squats all along and you're great at them, you can do a nice deep squat from this position. Just make sure that you have somebody standing nearby to help spot you in this position so that you don't roll off to one side or the other. In fact, in all of the positions with the ball, it's really helpful to have somebody there behind you or in front of you watching you and making sure that you're stable in those positions. This is the peanut ball that we were talking about before. One of the most common uses for the peanut ball is when you are laying down. So if a hospital in your area has a peanut ball and the nurses have been trained how to use it, they are using it almost 100% of the time for patients with epidurals. It's a great way to keep your pelvis nice and open when you have to lay in a bed. So you can use it whether you have an epidural or not when you're laying down to keep your pelvis open. We used to use pillows for this, stack a bunch of pillows in between your legs, but the pillows smash down over time, and when you have a contraction and you squeeze them, it closes, and that's the opposite of what we want to do. We want to keep your pelvis nice and open during a contraction and in between. So here are 3 different ways that you can use the ball, and it pays to take some time and practice and see which of these is most comfortable for you. This will depend on a lot of things, on your own body positioning, on your own comfort, on your flexibility, and a lot on your height. Women with shorter legs tend to have a harder time with a peanut ball. Sometimes if you can let some air out of the ball, it's a little more comfortable. If it's overinflated and really firm, it's going to be hard to get into a comfortable position. There are also different sizes of peanut balls. This is sort of the medium average size that you see in this picture. And you can see in that top left picture, it's shaped like a peanut. That's how it gets its name. So in the top picture, I have it fully in between both legs. It runs the length of both of my legs, and my top leg is completely supported on top of the ball. In the picture on the top right, my bottom leg is straight and it's in that smaller arch of the ball. And then my top leg again is fully supported from knee to foot on the ball. The one on the bottom is my favorite. If you can get yourself into this position, it's beneficial for a number of reasons. So in this position, the ball is not on my bottom leg at all. I have my hips turned over a little bit, so my top hip comes a little bit further over my bottom hip, and then I drape my top leg over the center of the ball. This gives your body a really nice position in your hips for maximum openness and for relaxation. This is a position that you could fall asleep in and rest really well. There's another one that I did not show in these pictures where you can be sitting up a little bit in the bed, and you can put both legs over the ball. So you'd be sitting up just kind of like in a chair position, but reclined in the bed, and just have it under both of your knees and your feet are straight in front of you. So that's another, if you are comfortable in that position, but you still want a little bit of openness in your hips, you can use the peanut ball for that position as well. Some more positions without the ball. This is hands and knees that we were talking about before. See how happy I look to be in this position? This is a great one, and you can do a lot of different things from this position. Like I said, if it's hard on your wrists, you can make fists and go up on your fists instead. You can try that out right now and see what feels most comfortable to you. You can do this anywhere. You can do it on your floor, you can do it on your bed, you can do it on the hospital bed. I wouldn't recommend the hospital floor unless maybe you bring a yoga mat or something. But this is a very versatile position to be in. This is the pelvic tilt and a little bit of what it looks like. It's a lot like cat-cow position in yoga, except we're focusing mainly on the pelvis and not so much on the arch in the back. So you can see on the left, I have my tailbone pointed down towards the ground, and on the right, my tailbone pointed up toward the ceiling. And you're welcome to arch your back or extend it as much as is comfortable. It can be an additional back stretch or a very gentle core exercise for you as well. But don't feel you have to if that's not comfortable. So use it to your own advantage, whatever feels the best for you in this position. But the main focus in this is the pelvis and the movement in the pelvis and creating space for the baby and relaxing all of the muscles and the supporting structures in the pelvis. Knee chest is a position. These are all listed under your helps for back labor. Hands and knees is very beneficial for back labor because it takes some of the pressure of the baby's weight off of the nerves in your low back. So if you're having back labor, hands and knees may feel really good. Knee chest is a more extreme version of that. It's not the first one that I choose in labor because it also lifts the baby a little bit up out of the pelvis. And we don't want to do that for too long because it's going to slow your labor. But if you're having extreme back labor, you may ask your care provider about this position. I also always introduce this position because if something should happen during your labor, your water breaks, and you feel something slip out, it's called cord prolapse. It's very, very rare. But if you feel the cord slip out in your vagina after the water has broken, this would be the position that you would get into. That's considered an emergency because you don't want the cord to be compressed in between the baby's head and the cervix. And if the cord comes out first before the baby, that is the risk. So in the very, very, very rare chance that this should happen, it's really helpful to know this position. You get in this knee-chest position, and like I said, it lifts the baby up out of the pelvis a little bit, so there's not going to be that pressure of the baby's head on your cervix. And then you or whoever else is in the house call 911, and they'll transport you to the hospital, probably in this position. It is a very safe position for you to be in if that happens. So it's a good one to be familiar with. But in labor, the most common use is for back labor. Another great position for back labor is the lunge. And you can do it just like you would think with a lunge for exercise with both feet on the ground. But this is a way to get the lunge position without having to use the muscles in your legs quite as much. Because as we know from doing our lunges and exercise, it works your legs a lot. And you may not be able to do that for a long period of time in labor. So you can use a chair and you can lunge to the side. You can lunge straight forward. You can do either leg. The key is to find the most comfortable. So whichever leg, whichever position, whichever direction is the most comfortable for you, that's where you want to be. I also wanted to include one more picture in this, the squat bar. I'm not going to go over the pushing positions per se because a lot of them are repeated from what we just talked about in labor. But a squat bar is something that most people, unless you've been at a birth, are not really familiar with how it works. And this is a pretty good diagram. I'm not quite sure what that little bump is underneath her bottom. I don't know why the bed has that little bump. But other than that, it's a good illustration to show you where the squat bar is, the angle it is, her holding on to it. The purpose, the intention of the squat bar and the way most people think of using it is with the bed intact like this, and you're holding the squat bar and you're in a regular flat foot squat like you would do right now if you were going to do it on the floor, and you keep your feet flat and you squat your bottom all the way down to the ground. That's the position that most people envision using this squat bar with, and it is wonderful for that. But it's a difficult position for a lot of women to maintain. It does require flexibility and strength in your legs, and a lot of people don't feel very safe, very stable on a soft bed in that kind of squat position unless they have a lot of extra support, a person on each side helping, maybe holding on to them and helping them feel more secure. So an alternative to this is the foot of the bed on a hospital bed, where her feet are in this picture, can drop way down or be taken off. And they'll take it off when you get to the pushing phase. But it can just drop down and be much lower. So you can kind of see what that is with this strange little bump in the bed in this picture, where her feet are lower, but they would be even lower than that in this picture. And she's kind of sitting on the edge of that little box. And so you can sit on the edge of the bed holding onto the squat bar in between contractions with your feet down low. And then when a contraction comes, you can slide your bottom off the edge and get into a good squat. And you'll be holding the bar a bit above your head at that point, so it's a little bit different. But you can get a good squat that way. I've also seen nurses remove the bottom, the foot part of the bed, and the mom stands on the other side. And now we're going back to that hanging concept with the Swedish rungs with that ladder looking thing. And so you can hold on to the squat bar or tie a towel or a sheet around the squat bar and hold on to that and have your feet on the floor facing the bed, if you can envision that. So those are some different ways to use the squat bar. If you do know in advance that you want to use it, that's a good thing to put in your birth plan and to mention to the nurses when you get there, because they may have to go hunt it down. It's not the most commonly used piece of equipment, so sometimes it takes them a little while to get a hold of it and then find somebody who knows how to attach it and how to use it. So make sure they have one and give them a heads up so they have time to locate it and find a nurse who knows how to attach it before you're in desperate need and wanting it right away. So I hope that these pictures helped, and do take some time to practice these positions and find what is most comfortable for you and for your body before you get into labor.